Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Taboda. I am the local education reporter for the Austin American-Statesman, and I am joined with Julie Chank to talk to you today about Texas school finance and what is happening at the legislature. So the last time we talked in January, the session had just kicked off, and Julie, you were kind of telling us what kind of expectations you had and some of the bills that might be filed. What's happened so far?
So I think the biggest news so far actually happened earlier this week with the passage in the Texas House of House Bill 3, which is the big school finance package, which earlier estimates had basically said that schools would get about $6 billion over the next 2 years more. And then $3 billion of it would go towards bringing down property taxes that school districts collect over the next 2 years. So it's a big spending bill. And, you know, the Senate also agreed to spend about that much on school finance and school property tax relief. And so within this bill, you're going to see quite a few things. You're going to see a revision in a lot of the outdated school finance formulas that have really, unequally funded school districts and also insufficiently funded school districts. You'll find more money directed to low-income students. You'll find money for pre-kindergarten, dyslexic students, and other changes. This week, right before the Texas House passed the big bill, they added in the very last minute a pay raise for most school employees over the next 2 years. And that figure amounts to about $1,850 in an annual raise. A permanent annual raise. So that's the Texas House's plan, whereas the Texas Senate, their pay plan for teachers is a little bit different in that they want to give a $5,000 across the board pay raise, but to fewer types of employees. So to go directly to just classroom teachers and librarians, as opposed to most school employees in the Texas House plan. So those are the big things with the bill. But yeah, I mean, I think that our Central Texas school districts would benefit, and you can totally weigh in on that, Melissa.
Yeah, and I think some of them, are cautiously optimistic about the plans. Some of them didn't want to be forced or have money specifically tied to pay raises necessarily, or be concerned. They had some concerns that there might end up being unfunded mandates down the road, that there's money today, but there might not be money in the future. But overall, they seem to be pretty warm about the proposals, and especially the House proposal. And they did seem like Austin would be reducing its recapture rate by, I want to say, like $195 million. And so it overall would give them an additional $125 million just for their operations. And that's a big chunk of money for a school district. And so they're talking about they would have the money to close their budget shortfall, which is like $65 million. They would be able to put money into academic programs like literacy, and also do pay raises. So I'm not exactly sure how that would work. Maybe you can kind of shed some light if teachers or districts were already thinking about doing pay raises with the money that they would get, and now there's a provision for them to also have funding for employee raises. I mean, how do those two mesh, if they do at all?
Right. Yeah. And lawmakers were also thinking about that too earlier this week as they were debating this provision in the bill. And lawmakers really want school districts to give raises on top of what lawmakers want to give to school employees. So on top of the $1,850 average in the House plan. So, it'd be interesting to see if school districts follow through with that. There's one thing that you had mentioned about recapture. Maybe explain that a little bit more. I think it's one of those systems in the school finance formulas that is a little bit outdated, so or needs changing or revision. So you mentioned about how the Austin School District would actually save some money on its recapture payments, quite a bit of money.
And not just Austin, although it is the largest payer of recapture in the state, but basically recapture means that districts that fall in property wealthy areas, so the land that they sit on is worth a lot, have to pay into the state, have to pay a certain amount, and it's based on a formula, to help subsidize education in property poor school districts or districts where their property isn't valued as much. And it's basically aimed at equity, being able to even the playing field among school districts and the type of funding that they have for their students.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So where do you think the session's going to end? I mean, how do you think everything's going to wrap up?
Well, we still have a bit of a ways to go. The Senate still has to vet House Bill 3, so the changes that the House has made and proposed. And so the Senate will do that. And it seems like the Senate, I mean, there's obviously the discrepancy in how they want to do the pay raises. But the Senate, for the most part, has indicated that they would, agree to a good amount of the bill. There are a few differences here and there. So once that happens, obviously both chambers would then have to conference on the bill based on changes the Senate made and obviously what the House had intended. And then from there, it should then hopefully with no problem head to the governor's desk. The governor did make school finance an emergency item for the Texas legislature. So it means that's a big priority. And so it seems like lawmakers are really pushing it forward and really optimistic that they'll get something done. So we'll see what the future holds for the 5.4 million students in the state of Texas.
Awesome. That's great. Well, everybody, you can just watch our continuing coverage about education and legislative issues involving school finance on statesman.com. And you can also check out our Facebook page, Statesman Education. Thanks so much.